Hi Sai, hi Swaru. Good evening.
Hi, Shiva. Good evening.
Hi Shiva.
Yeah, hello. Hi. I think your sister is joining. Can you hear me, Sai?
Yes, Shiva. I just texted
Okay,
Rajesh.
sure.
Yes, Shiva. I texted, but that's fine, Shiva. Like within 5 minutes, if they don't join, you can start, Shiva. We're ready.
Okay, we'll just wait for 2 to 3 minutes. If they don't join, we'll start.
Yeah, sure, sure.
That's fine. We'll go ahead and start it. Anyway, I'm recording this session, so I'll share the
Yes,
recordings. Yeah.
yes, Shiva. Yes, that's fine.
Okay. The agenda would be today we will have a quick recap on understanding of indexes, keys, and then I'll be deep dive into a little bit more about indexes. What are the different properties of indexes? What are the different properties of indexes? And then I'll try to give an overview of SSMS, like what are the different features available in SSMS. One, what being a developer or being a SQL developer, what we can do with this SSMS. I'll give you an overview of SSML, and still if we have time, then I'll go and walk you through the table structure in using SSMS in SQL Server. Before starting, let me go ahead and launch the poll for the last session.
Sure, sure.
Okay. Okay, it must be on. Take few minutes and let me know once it is completed. Hey, sorry, I forgot your name. What was it? The one who joined with ID Gauri. Sorry, Swaroop, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
Shiva, we can hear you.
Hope the poll is launched, right? We are proceeding with it.
Yeah, yeah, we're currently answering.
Sure. I think everyone has submitted. Sai, Swaroop, is it done?
Yes,
Yeah,
we are
we're
done.
done.
Okay, let me stop the poll. Maybe Gauri Priya, we will go through the questions. Maybe the poll I cannot relaunch it. Okay, I'm sharing the results, and also let me share my screen. Hope my screen is visible. Okay, what is the primary purpose of index in SQL? Okay, to speed up the data retrieval to ensure the data integrity. I think someone,
Shiva, I can't see my answers.
sorry.
I can't see my answers. What I write, what I tick the answers. I can't
Oh, okay,
see my
sorry.
result.
1 second. I just enabled it. Now you must be able to see.
No, Shiva, I don't.
Oh, you're not seeing. Oh, one
I
second.
can see the answers. Yeah,
Can you see, Saru?
I can see the.
Okay.
I
Let me
don't know why I can't
re-enable.
see.
I just re-enabled it again. Can you check? Still not
No,
able to see.
Shiva.
That's fine. Anyway, I'm sharing my screen and answers are
Yeah,
visible.
I can.
Okay.
Yeah, I got.
Okay. Okay. Can you see my screen? Is it visible?
Yes, Shiva.
Okay. First one is what is the primary purpose of indexes in SQL? Okay. One of you have mentioned it is data integrity, but keys are about data integrity, right? Not indexes. Indexes is all about the performance of the SQL query that we write, as in retrieval of data.
Yes, Shiva. Yeah, mine was right.
Okay.
Read wrong.
Yeah. So in data integrity talks about all the uniqueness. How do we store the data into the columns? All those comes under as part of the key. So data
Hmm.
integrity is the property of keys. Indexes
Got it.
is about retrieval of data, the query performance and all. Okay, what is clustered index? We, as we discussed, right, it is determines the physical order of the data in the storage, which is
Hmm.
correct. Third one is what is the disadvantage of using indexes? So if you remember in the last session we discussed, right, even
Yeah,
even
they need
let's
a
say if we
storage.
have less data and if we try to create a multiple indexes, since indexes would also require some additional storage, it would always degrade your performance. So we'll have to be smart enough to while creating the keys. So you'll have to check whether it really impacts any performance. If not, we should not go ahead and just create the keys. So while creating, we will eventually see how do we decide whether to create a key or not. But yeah, the main disadvantage would be it takes some space. What is the purpose of primary key? As you mentioned, right, it is uniquely identifies a record in the table, which is, I mean, very much straightforward. Again, foreign key, let's say if we have to relate two tables, then we will have a foreign key defined on the second table, which is referencing a primary key, or even it is possible to create a foreign key with the reference of unique key as well on the first table. We will see more details today about how do we create and what are the different ways. What is
Yes,
the
Shiva, but
Mhm.
the for the primary key, Shiva, it ensures the referential integrity between two tables, right? That's
No,
the
no,
right answer,
it's
right?
no. Yeah, yeah, it is not primary key, right? It's foreign key.
But for the fifth question, which is true about foreign key, it is saying the first answer was right. Like it
No, no.
uniquely identifies each row, each
No,
record
no,
in
no.
the.
I might have marked the answer wrong, but it is second option. Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
because
Answer.
Even I
mine
was
was showing.
wondering.
No, no.
Yeah,
Even for
because mine
me
was
too,
showing
it
wrong.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
start with
while
the second
setting,
option.
yeah, second option is correct one, but
Mhm.
while setting up, maybe I was mistaken.
Okay. Oh,
Sure,
okay.
sure.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I create these pictures manually, right? So I might have made mistake. Yeah, but second option is correct. Okay. What is the main difference between clustered and non-clustered index in SQL? A clustered index determines the physical order of the rows, while the non-clustered index does not. What is the second option? A clustered index can be created only on the numeric columns, while the non-clustered. No, so the second option is not correct, right? We can create clustered index on any column.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the first
Yeah,
option is right, Shiva, for
correct.
that one.
Yeah,
So
I
Swarup, for
am the
right, I
one.
mean, yeah,
Yeah.
in our last session, maybe I've shown you
Hmm.
only clustered index on the int
Numeric
column, but
column.
we can
Yeah.
create a clustered. It is just like a primary key or any clustered index. We can create it on
Mm-hmm.
any column, any data type. It can be
Mm-hmm.
uh, GUID, or it can be string, it can be varchar, any column. On any column, we can create the index. But if you look at the
Okay.
first statement, right, it is more
Mm-hmm.
clear that the clustered index determines the physical order, whereas
Physical order. Yeah.
non-clustered does not talk about anything about the physical order, right?
Mm-hmm.
Non-clustered is always depends on the clustered index. Okay, I
Okay.
mean, seventh one would be straightforward. How many we can have? Okay,
Only
I put
one
we can
cluster.
have
I
only
I
one
put
clustered index. What is the reason
uh,
behind it? The reason is clustered index always talks about the physical order, and we always can
okay.
have physical order, only one physical order, right? We cannot have more than one physical order.
Okay.
Hope that is clear, Farouk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. See, I mean, whenever we talk about the clustered or clustered index, it always talks about physical order,
Physical
and
order.
we
Oh.
can always logically also, if you think, we can always have a one only physical order. That is the reason we can
Mm.
have only one clustered index. Okay. Which of the following is true about the non-clustered index? It can it directly determines the physical order, which is wrong. Physical order is clustered index. See, for this, the second option would be the right one, right? It stores the pointer to the data rows via primary key rather than the data itself. So if you remember the last class, right? For the non-clustered index, whenever you create a non-clustered index, there will be a virtual table or a temp table that will be created, which will be holding the non-clustered index column and the pointer to the primary key clustered
Primary
index.
key. Yeah.
So if you look at the second option, right, it would be appropriate. So the third option talks about it only used to
Used
optimize
to
the select
apply.
query. It is not only select queries, it does for many things. Okay.
Okay.
It's not even only for select queries. Even if we apply any filter queries and all, the non-cluster. See, in the
Mm-hmm.
last session when we discussed, right, we create the non-clustered index when we apply any filtering conditions on any column. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not only for select queries.
Okay.
Is it clear, Sai, Swarup?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I got it. I thought one, but like, and then I
Yeah, yeah,
like eat too much, and then I got go it from
yeah.
there.
That's fine. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, I keep the quizzes very simple only, so that's okay. Because we are at very starting point, right? So what happens when a non-clustered index is created on a table with a clustered index? So the non-clustered index will store the pointer to the rows based on the order of the clustered index. The clustered index will be updated for every modification on the. See, the third option would definitely very wrong, because once we create a clustered index, it is nowhere related. We don't modify anything on the clustered index. Whenever we create a non-clustered index, there will be a new temp table or a virtual table created in the backend, which will maintain the mapping between the non-clustered and clustered index. It won't change anything on
Okay.
the
That's
clustered
fine.
index. Yeah.
No, what I thought was you said the non-clustered index, what it does is it sorts the things based on the other column that you're trying to
Ha,
fetch,
correct.
right?
But
Instead of the clustered index, it'll be in around something like it'll be in certain order, and the non-clustered index it'll sort the columns based on the thing that you fetch, right? So
but
I
that's
thought,
true. But the
and
clustered
it
index
will be
will not be
connected to the
updated, right?
pointer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
it
might
will be
be
connected to the pointer.
correct.
So that's why I thought it might
Yeah,
change
but
the
yeah, it is true
order.
that it will be connected to the primary key or
Yeah,
clustered index, but it won't update
yeah,
anything on the clustered index.
yeah.
The clustered
Okay.
index, see, it is very much similar to the previous question, right? It is just points to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
clustered index.
Yeah, got it. I got it. I got it when you explained the above
Sure, sure,
problem, above
sure.
question.
No
But
issues.
yeah. Mhm.
If a non-clustered index is created on a table with the clustered index, how is search performed? It is similar, right? I mean, non-clustered index will search on the table in the physical order of the clustered index and then use its pointer to find the data.
Yes, Shiva. Yeah, I did mistake on that one.
Yeah, I think, but it is clear, right? Yeah, it is not. I mean, it won't use any secondary index and all. It is just that it will make a use of that virtual or temporary table, which is having mapping between non-clustered index and clustered index, and then it will search for the corresponding data. Hope that is clear. Okay. When when would you typically use a non-clustered index rather than a clustered index?
Yeah, when we don't have like a primary key,
Correct.
when like you
See,
said, the
let's say if you
example,
want
like
to,
when you go by name basis, you can
yeah,
use
yeah,
that.
exactly. So let's say there is already primary key and you want to perform some search operations or filter conditions on a different column which is not primary key, then we go for it. The second option would be the right one.
Yes, sir.
I think this is the last one. Okay, that's all. Okay, now you must be more clear on at least like what is index, what is clustered index, what is non-clustered index, and how they work in the backend. And also, maybe tomorrow I'll try to create more questions on the keys so that we'll have good understanding at keys as well.
Yes,
Okay, with that, I'm stopping the quiz and let's see for today. Give me 1 minute. Okay. Hope my screen is visible. Okay, today we will see what are different properties of indexes as well as keys. When we talk about the indexes, right, there are two types of indexes. One is a clustered index, other one is a non-clustered index. Now let's talk about the clustered index. What are the different properties that when you create a clustered index on your table, what it holds? The clustered index, right, as I mentioned, it will always, there will be only one clustered index can be created per table. Second, when you create a clustered index, right, I mean, when you create a primary key on any table, then it will automatically creates a clustered index. Whenever you create a primary key on your table, it will automatically create a clustered index. Third one would be, obviously, this is the physical order of the table. It will impact the physical order. Let's say previously all the records are stored in random order. And when you create a clustered index, then it will change the or impact the physical order. And it will sort the records in a physical order depending on how you created your clustered index, whether it is an ascending or descending order. These are about clustered index. And when you talk about the non-clustered indexes, right? See, unlike clustered index, right? Because we can only have one physical order. This is the reason we will always have only one clustered index. But when you consider the non-clustered index, we can have more than one non-clustered indexes. Reason being, let's say whenever you want to perform search operation or filter operation on more than one column, then you can have two clustered indexes created. Second one would be it will not any impact any physical order. Does not impact physical order. Third one, right? You can also create a cluster. See, there are two things here. A clustered index can be, we can create more than one clustered index on different columns, or we can create a clustered or non-clustered indexes on the combination of columns. Let's say you want to combine column 1 plus column 2 and create a non-clustered index, you can do that as well. This property holds true for even clustered index. Clustered index can be created on combination of columns also. There will be obviously only one clustered index, but let's say if you want to combine two columns and create a clustered index, then it is possible. So we can also create a clustered index on by combining two or more than one column. Similar to non-clustered events. For non-clustered index also, let's say if you want to create, for example, right, let's say I have written one SQL query, select star from some table employees where column 1 equals to this and column 2 equals to this. Here if you see, right, we are combining two conditions on using two different columns. So in this case we might end up creating one clustered index for these two columns. Again, if you don't understand this, that's fine, but it is possible that we can create a non-clustered index with the combinations of more than one column. Okay. Okay, this is about clustered index. Now let's go ahead and see keys. Let me know if you have any questions. Hope this is clear then. Okay, let's see about keys. Let me remove from here. And let me take this pen. Sorry, my bad. So what are the different keys that we have? The first one would be primary key. See, as we discussed right just before, whenever you create a primary key on any table, it will automatically creates a clustered index. Second property would be it will not allow nulls, no nulls in the column. Whenever you create a primary key, it will try to insert the nulls, it will not allow you. Third one would be, give me 1 minute, please. Third one would be there will be obviously only one primary key. Okay. Now there is another constraint which is unique key. We can have more than one unique key on a table. Second, it will also allow nulls, as in, see, unique key is all about it. The data must be unique. Let's say if you have a numbers 1, 2, 3 and null. So null is also considered as a unique value. Let's say if you try to insert another column with value null, then it won't allow you to insert because one null is already present. So null is also considered as a one unique value, which is why unique key allows you nulls. Hope that is clear. The last one that we have is there are other keys, but for now let's forget about those. Foreign key. See, foreign key again, right? We can create a foreign key on, I mean, we can create more than one foreign key on a table. Let's say if you want to create two relations between two different tables. I mean, you have a table one and you wanted to create a foreign key relation between table two and table three. You can do that. This is allowed. And let's say you want to create a foreign key relation between the same table, as in on the self table. Let's say if you have a table, let me take an example. See, let's take an example. I have a table. Maybe one more column. Okay, this is my ID. This is my name. Let's call it as a TBL employees. Okay, let's call this guy as a designation, and let's call this as a manager ID. Okay, let's say this guy 1 2 3, and let's say whoever, or let's say this guy is manager, lead, and employee. Now let's say I wanted to create a self reference as in the manager ID. Let's say for Shiva is the manager to both Sai and Swarup. Then what we can do is we can give the ID of manager here itself as in 1 1. This indicates that the manager to Sai and Shiva is Shiva. And for me, it would be null. So if you look at here, this manager ID is the foreign key relationship on the same table. We are inserting the values of ID in the same table, as in we are referencing the foreign key here would be referencing to the same table, and the column would be ID column. Hope that makes clear. So we can also create a foreign key relationship, foreign key relation on the same table. Okay, we can create the foreign key relation between two tables, two external tables, or many other external tables, and we can also create a foreign key on the same table. Okay, let me know if you have any questions on this. I don't know, I'll try to share these notes, but I don't know if that will be helpful to you. But anyway, yeah. Okay, so
You can share the recordings of the
yeah,
video,
recording
Shiva.
as well.
Can
I'll
you do
share
that?
the recording as well. Yes, I can do.
Okay,
I'll
then
share
that
the
should
recording.
be fine.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah. And
Recording
we
anyway
understand this
started. Yeah,
foreign
yeah,
key relation.
yeah.
You can
Sorry.
create a foreign key in a same table
Correct.
by
Yes.
using the or record ID,
Yes.
right?
Exactly.
Yes,
The
go
similar,
ahead.
the same example that we have
Hmm.
seen.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that
Got it.
would be the one use case. So, okay, with that, we are done with the indexes and keys. Maybe tomorrow or something, we will have an session on how to create all this. But even before doing that, we will go and see how SSMS works. What are the different features that is SSMS is providing us to work with the SQL Server. Okay, I'm stopping here on the indexes and keys. Now let's go to see when you install. Have you guys installed SSMS and SQL in your machines? Is that ready?
Yes,
If
Shiva,
not,
it's
yeah.
ready.
Okay,
Yes,
cool,
Shiva.
cool. Okay, so this is the SSMS tool that I have opened. When you open your SSMS tool, it looks like something like this. I did not connect to any SQL server or nothing. It is just that my SSMS tool, like any other software, it is just a desktop tool that I've just opened. Now here you see there are many options, like this is the context menu that we have at the top, and on the left side you see there is a object explorer. This object explorer would be helpful to you connect to the SQL server to any machine. Let's say I want to connect to one SQL server which is installed on my machine. Now you can click on this plug icon, or you can say connect from here, and you can select database engine. I'll tell you what are the other different types that are available here. See, these are the different services that will be enabled with either SQL server, or there are some other tools which we will be able to connect using SSMS. Our interest is SQL server, I mean database. That's why we'll be always using database engine. Even if you see the first option, the database engine would be automatically select. And in this pop-up, in this connect to server window, there are few options. One would be the server name, the other one would be authentication. Now let's say if you want to, the server name would be the SQL server that you want to connect. Let's say the SQL server is installed on your machine, then the server name would be by default your machine name. This is my machine name. Or let's say if you have created two instances, as in let's say you have created one instance with the server name as in computer name, the other one instance which is something like you have given some SQL Express or something. So instance is nothing but a logical space that is divided between your SQL servers. Let's say you can have more than one instance created on your SQL server. When you are creating a SQL server, you can create more than one instances. So let's say if I have created two SQL servers on my machine, then I'll be able to use server name slash my instance name, whatever it is. Right now I have only one instance, which is my computer name. The authentication is, let's say if you are connecting to any remote server or something which requires some additional authentication mechanism, then you can always choose SQL Server authentication. The other one would be, let's say, if you are using a Azure kind of authentication, whatever the authentication mechanism that they have, you can choose the one and you will be able to connect to the server. Again, the server name would be the server name in which your SQL is working, and the authentication for now, Windows authentication, as in it will directly use my Windows authentication. Whatever the login mechanism that I am using for this computer will be by default used. Since I have already logged in, it will not ask you to any username and password. It will identify it. It is trusting that I am the user who is using this SSMS, which is the reason why this username and password are disabled. We don't need anything. But if you select any SQL Server authentication, it do requires a login name and password for this server. Okay. If you go to options, right, there is options menu here. If you click on it, it will give you some additional properties. Let's say, I mean, this is the same, but if you go to connect properties, there are some properties like, see, there would be some possibilities that when you are connecting to the remote server while working, see, it is not always possible to create a SQL server in your local machine. Sometimes you might need to connect to the other databases. So when you are trying to connect, right, let's say if you want to choose the database automatically, I mean, let's say there could be many databases on the SQL server and you want to connect to the particular database, then you'll have to choose the database here. You'll have to type it manually, or if it is available, you can select it from the drop down list. Okay, this is mandatory. The reason why I am saying is, let's say you have given one server here on which there are 4 to 5 databases. But for this user, whatever the user that you are trying to connect to this server have access to only one database, then you will have to choose the database here before even connecting to that server. Otherwise, you will always end up getting some issues. I mean, authentication issue or some sort of issues. That is why it is always best practice to select the server name here and then select the authentication and then go to the connection properties and type the database name here so that you'll have uh, you'll have any issues, you'll not have any issues while connecting. And protocols and all these are all by default, and connection time, it was like when do you want to connect, I mean, this is like some default timeout. Okay, you don't need to worry much about it. And the other things you can ignore for now, it is not much used, I mean, we don't use it much. The only thing that you would need to remember is the database connection. When you are trying to connect to any other server which is not in your machine, then you will have to choose the database. If you have access to all the database, which is fine, you'll be able to connect without any issues. But if you have access to only one database, then you will always have to choose the database from here. Okay, now I've selected my SQL server, which is my local machine, and I'm using Windows authentication and say connect. Now, as soon as I connect, right, on the left hand side, you see there is something called as a object explorer, which will give you complete a display of all the components that are available in your SQL server. Like, let's say, what are the different databases that are present on my SQL server? See, SQL server is some sort of storage, right? We have just enabled the SQL server. So we can create a databases on top of it. Let's say if my SQL server is of 200 GB, then I want to create a database for my one of the project, then I'll create a one database. One database is a logical separation, right? I mean, using within that logical space, you will be able to perform all the operations related to that project or that database. So we can have more than one databases within one SQL server. And depending on our requirement, let's say if you are working on any project, then you will be having one database for each project. There are some cases where one project might have two to three databases. It would be depending on the requirement. Let's say if any project is having uh, some kind of admin roles into different database, some kind of users into some user database, then they'll end up creating more than one database per project also. It completely depends on how you want to design your database system. That we'll see later. It is not needed at this stage, but yeah, just wanted to let you know. Now, once you have a multiple databases, all those will be visible under this databases folder. Now you see there are few other folders as well, like system databases. See, what are the system databases, right? There are few system databases here. See, these three things, the master database, this is the by default database that was created by your SQL server whenever you install a SQL server. What this guy holds is all the users information, all the tables, anything and everything you want to access about this SQL server will be stored in this master database. It by default, SQL by default creates one database for us, and if you go and expand it, I'll show you later maybe, but it will hold all the master data about your SQL server, all the columns information, all the tables information, whatever the databases that you are creating in this server will be available in this master database. This will have access to each and every database object that is available under this server. When I say that, right, that is the reason why whenever to access this master database, you should have a admin access to the system or admin access to the server. Reason being, this will have an access to each and every database that is available on this SQL server. Okay, and just keep going. Stop me if you have, whenever you have any questions. Okay. Okay, this is about a database. Now let's look into the other folders. Security, right? Let's say if you want to create some sort of logins on this SQL server, let's say while connecting to the SQL server, right, it was asking you about the authentication. Those authentication you'll be able to enable here. And let's say if you want to define some server roles and all, those would be enabled here. So these are all, I mean, we don't use, I mean, being a SQL developers, we don't use much, but whenever you want to create any SQL authentication, I'll show you, but the remaining folders won't be useful for us as a SQL developers. This is all about security, and remaining we don't even use it. These are all related to some integration, SSIS and all those. Those are not even useful for us. We don't even talk about it. We are very much interested in this databases folder only, and that too we don't touch much on system databases. I'll show you, I mean, one or two use cases when we have to use the system databases. Other than that, we don't use much. And database snapshot, I'll tell you maybe once we are comfortable with some SQL queries and all, I'll tell you what is database snapshots and all. Okay, now these are the different, let's say if you look at my databases folder, I have 5 different databases, each are having a logical space, and for each database there will be a logical space on my SQL server storage. As I mentioned before, right, if I've created my SQL server of 200 GB and I've created my database, then there would be some 10 GB dedicatedly assigned in a same location for this database. It is just a logical separation of my space. And if you expand each database, there would be again multiple options. First one would be database diagram. Let's say whatever the tables, whatever the relations that I have, all we can see under database diagram. We will see that later. But the other thing that we are interested is tables, views. What is tables is, table is just like the SQL table that we are just discussing, right? Any table that we are creating on the SQL would be going will be available from here. Since I did not create any tables, I don't have any tables. So, but by default, there are some default folders which we don't need for now. At least again, like we have a master table, we also have a system tables. These system tables will be holding some sort of information that is specific to this database. Again, we don't need much, but again, if you just want to know, just you can explore on what is system tables in SQL. It is just holding some sort of a metadata about all the columns, all the tables, all the keys in this specific DB. Okay, so what the folders that we will be working with is tables, views, and programmability. The programmability folder will contain, let's say if you are creating any stored procedure, any function, or any kind of database triggers, which we will see eventually, and types, let's say we can create some sort of types and all those would be available under this programmability. Even if you don't understand what are all these, that's okay. I just wanted to walk you through on the folder structure. I don't want you to understand what is programmability, what is stored procedure, and all those at this stage. We will go into that later. But the structure would be, Whenever when you connect it to the SQL server, there will be certain folders that are available, and we will be working with the databases folder, under which we will be able to see all the list of databases that are available. We can go ahead and create new database by right clicking. Maybe we'll see that in detail later, but we can see all the databases. And if you want to see what are the different objects that are available in each database, then we can expand it. By expanding it, you will be able to see what are the different tables that are available under this database. We will see what is views, but again, views is also something similar to tables only, but we will see that later. And there will be programmability folder, under which we will be having different store procedure database. All these we will go in. So we will be very much interested in tables, views, and programmability folder. The remaining things we don't use much, but again, I'll try to, once we cover all these table views programmability, we'll eventually try to give you some light on remaining folders as well. Maybe we will see database diagram also, but not much. Maybe 1 or 2 sessions we'll take on database diagrams as well. Okay, any questions on the folder structure? Hope it must be clear.
No, sure, we're good.
Okay. Okay, yeah, just wanted to make you guys comfortable with the SSMS. That is the reason I'm explaining you what are the different features that are available under SSMS. Now, let's say on this database, like as I said, right, under databases, I right now have 5 databases. Now, let's say I want to work on this database. What can I do is I can right click on this database and I can say new query. This query window is a temporary window that will be associated with the database that you have selected, and whatever the queries, whatever the create, I mean, let's say if you are creating, if you want to create any table, or if you want to get the data from table, or if you have to see whatever the information that is related to the database, this query window will be helpful. You cannot connect to any other database within this query window. You dedicatedly open this query window for this database only. But now, for example, if you want to switch the database, if you want to use this query window for the different database, then there will be an option, a drop down option here, using which you can change the database. Now, let's say if I've chosen different database here, let's say if I've chosen testdb here, which is my another database, then now this query will be working on that database. Okay, now once you change the database, all the queries that you have written here will be associated with the with this db only. Okay, or on the query window, you can right click on it, and let's say you can go to the connection, and let's say if you want to connect to the different, I mean, disconnect from this server and connect to the different server, you want to associate this query window to the different server, you can do that as well. You can just go to connection, say disconnect. See this SQL query window. It is just like a session query that is enabled for you. Now you can right click, say connect. It will pop you up with the connection window. You can choose the server. Let's say if you want to connect to the different server, these are my different servers that are available. You can choose it and then say connect. That will be connected. Now again, this query window will be associated with the connection that you have chosen there. And you can change the database from here always. Okay, now let's say if you have written some queries here and if you want to execute it, let's say for example on this, say new query, for now close this, select top 100 star. Don't, if you don't understand what is this, that's okay for now. I'm just writing this query just to make you understand about what is this query window. I don't need you to understand about much about these queries and all. See, I've just written one simple query here. Okay, and if I want to execute this query, as in if I want to execute this query and see the results, then after writing the query, I can use this execute button to execute it. And the below one, whatever you see, right, it is a result window. This is the query, like a SQL language, query language. Once you run it and once you select it and then say execute, the results will be displayed in the bottom section. You can expand this, you can minimize it, whatever you want, you can do. Let's say if the table is very much big, then you can just expand so that the more rows will be visible on the given space. Or you can even close this. Okay. So whatever the queries that we are writing here can be executed using this execute button. And again, this query is executing against that DB that is chosen here. Okay. And let's say this object explorer I have closed by mistake. If you want to open that back, then you can go to view and then say object explorer. Okay, then the object explorer will be back and it will be like you can use, I mean, let's say if you want to auto hide it, you can auto hide it. Whenever you click on this, it will be auto hidden. All those features are available that is comfortable to you. I mean, whenever, I mean, if you want to be work with the bigger screen, then you can just unpin it so that it will automatically hidden to the left side panel. You can also drag this and place it wherever you want. Okay, and whatever the SQL queries, let's say I've written two queries here and I want to execute both of them together or all the queries in my query window, then what you can do is don't select anything and just simply say execute. It will execute all the queries and it will display you the results over here. You see the first one is corresponds to the first result and the second one corresponds to the second result. However, let's say if you want to select only, I mean, even though there are multiple queries on this query window, you wanted to select only one query and run it. Then what you can do is just select it and then say execute. It will run only this query. If you have 100 queries and if you just wanted to select two queries, then select those two and say execute. Okay. You don't need to understand what is select query and all those. We will see that later. But how the query window works is if you don't select anything, it will run all the queries that are available on this query window. If you select any few lines, then it will select execute only those. Hope this is clear. Okay. Now you see there are, I'll just give you high overview on what is that, but we will see that maybe not even near future, maybe 3 weeks later or something. There is something called execution plan here. Okay. There are two options for you. One is the actual execution plan. The other one is the um, query statistics. Okay. See what is this see this is a sorry, my bad. Estimated execution plan, actual execution plan. What does this show you is whatever the indexes that you have created on this table, and if you say execute, sorry, enable this and then run this. So you see, whatever the operations that you have done on this will be elaborated in the result window. You see, there is an execution plan. Let's say if you have created a indexes and all those, how those indexes are being used when you are running this query will be displayed here. You will be able to see, let's say if you have created any non-clustered indexes and all, and if you are writing any filter conditions on this table, then how those indexes are contributing to this query will be visible from here. We will be able to understand how our query is performing using this execution plan. So estimated would be just by going through the query and all, it will be just estimating you. But if you use the actual execution plan, then when you are executing the query with the actual data, it will give you the actual plan. Most of the time, both would be the same, but in some cases, whenever you are having some huge data and all, then there will be slight differences between the actual and estimated plan. If you don't understand anything, that's okay for now. But execution is plan is all about how your query is performing using the different indexes that you have created on a SQL table. The queries, the table that are involved in this query. Let's say if I've written 2 3 tables in the single query, then all the tables, all the guys, give me one couple of seconds, please. Sorry. Okay. Let's say if I've created I mean, if I'm using two tables in my single query, then this execution plan will give you all the indexes that are created on those two tables and how they are being utilized while running this query will be displayed from. We will be able to analyze the performance of the query using the execution plan. We'll try to understand. I mean, we may not be able to understand each and everything, but we'll be able to solve some problems using the execution plan. Okay, we'll see that later, maybe 2 to 3 weeks later, once you are comfortable with all the queries and all. Okay, in SSMS, right, this is the majority features that we will be using. There are other in the context menu. Oh, I forgot. Let's say if you have created multiple things on this SQL query and you wanted to save it for the future purpose, you wanted to store it all your queries, then you can also store this SQL query window just by going to the file menu and then just say save SQL, whatever, and you can give some name. Let's say my queries and store it somewhere wherever you want. Let's say for now I'll store it on the desktop and then store. Now let's say if you want to open that, let's say close this, and if you want to open my queries that you have just stored, you can go to here and then say open file. Choose the file. Similar to any other editor, I mean any other notepad or anything, you can also store my queries and then it will just open you all the queries. So that you will, let's say if you have written 100 lines of queries and you just wanted to store them and reference it later, then you can store those queries. Okay. And under file menu, we will not have anything much. You will be able to open the file or create new file. All those things can be done from here. Okay. There are other things I'll tell you. I mean, maybe we'll discuss that later. That might be very heavy for you now. And yeah, I'll discuss these tools also later. Okay, so these are the majority features that we within the SSMS that we would be using to perform anything or to work with the SQL server. Okay, let me give you quick overview. Maybe tomorrow I'll discuss in detail, but let me give you quick overview on the SQL table. See, this is the SQL table that I am holding. If you expand this SQL table, there would be multiple options. You see, there are indexes, there are constraints, there are keys, there are columns, and there are triggers, there are statistics. We will discuss statistics, constraints, and triggers later, but tomorrow we will see what are the columns, what are the keys, what are the indexes. Keys and indexes are the same that we have just discussed. Whatever the primary key, unique key, foreign key, whatever the keys that you will be creating on this table will be visible under this keys folder. And whatever the indexes that you would be creating will be visible under this indexes folder. Now let's say if you expand, if you want to see what are the columns that are available, see, expand this, you will be able to see all the columns. These are the different columns that I have created on this table. If you look at this column, right, this int column is the name of the column, and in the brackets it is telling you what is the data type of, I mean, what does that mean is this int column will hold the data type of integers, and comma null means it will also allow you another nulls, as in that column you will be able to insert the nulls. Excuse me. Similar to that, right, I mean we can create any type of, these are the different types of database columns that we can create, and we can also mention whether it will allow nulls or not. I'll demonstrate you what is allowing nulls and all. However, under table we will be having columns folder under which we'll be able to see all the columns, and again there will be triggers, we will see that later. Indexes, all the clustered, non-clustered will be by default going into the indexes folder, and keys, whatever the primary key, foreign key, unique key, whatever you are creating will be visible under keys column. Okay, this is about the SQL table. Whatever the visual diagram that I've showed you on the first day or second day, all those will be visible on the column, I mean on the table here. If you want to see the rows, you'll have to run this query. So if you run this query, you see there are no rows present here, but it is displaying all the columns here. Okay. Okay, I'll stop here. Maybe tomorrow I will deep dive more onto what is a table, a SQL table, what we can do using SSMS, how do we insert data, what are the different ways to insert the data, and also we will slowly start working on, start writing, or even start understanding what are these SQL queries, what is this select mean, how do we write simple SQL queries using SSMS within my SQL server on a specific database. Okay, we'll see that late tomorrow. Okay, that's all. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm stopping the